Welcome to the Pet Loss Journals podcast. I am your host Louise. This podcast is all about the reality and impact pet loss has on our lives, and I will be discussing my personal journey through pet loss. So if you are struggling on your own pet loss journey, then this is the podcast for you. Welcome to episode 29. This week I will be talking about quite a short journal entry, and you know what? This one is really, really special because I had no memory of ever writing this journal entry, and I actually cried reading this back when I was prepping for this week's episode, because it's really come full circle. I can't believe it, but I won't keep you waiting too much longer. This journal entry is from the 22nd of September 2021. It's difficult to contemplate that the dogs will be dead 2 years next month. The pain is still as raw as it ever was. I wish someday I could set up a group that people can get together to talk openly about their pet grief, to give people a space to cry and to feel their emotions about the trauma and grief would be something so special. Maybe someday. You never know. Love you and miss you, Bob and Moose. So that is this week's journal entry. Some of you may be smiling, some of you may not know the significance of that journal entry, and I had no idea that I had even written that. It's not often that we go back a couple of years to read our journal entries, and maybe for some of you it is, but it definitely wasn't for me. So each time I plan one of these episodes, sometimes it is complete surprise for me to read these, because it's been so long since I read them, to be honest, because I continue to write. Really, why is this so incredibly special, this particular journal entry? Well, that entry was written on the 22nd of September 2021, and really I had no idea what was to come. I had no clue. But for those of you that may be new to this podcast or have not listened before, I mentioned before that I have a little business, a small business, and it is called Light After Loss. And this business I decided to form really because of that very reason from that journal entry. It wasn't even an idea in my head, but I guess from that journal entry, maybe it was the start of a seed that was planted in early 2023, really probably at the end of 2022. I began my Instagram page _Light After Loss, and that page was daunting, but I started to share a little bit about my pet loss journey. And I really, really wanted to start to spread awareness that pet loss grief isn't spoken about in society, and wanted to offer support to those that really, really need it, that felt completely lost and alone. And in the summer of 2022, before I started that Instagram page, I had completed my own grief recovery work around both of my dogs, around the death of my dogs, and I went on to become trained at an advanced level as a grief recovery specialist with the Grief Recovery Institute in the US, and that's where this all began. It just spiraled into, I was so affected deeply in a positive way by the grief recovery method in itself, on how it helped me to heal on another level, like a level above CBT. And for me personally, that is what brought me to a place of acceptance around their deaths. That is what brought me to a place of deep healing that I was searching for month after month. And I was just incredibly taken back by it and inspired, and that I was like, I would love to bring this to, grieving pet parents in Ireland. But what has happened now? It is now January 2024, months and months on from my initial training to working with clients. I have worked with clients completely online from Ireland, from the UK, from Germany, France, and the US, all over the place. And it's been absolutely incredible. It's been so incredible that everything that I wrote in that journal entry has essentially manifested into reality. That I even wrote I could set up a group that people can get together and talk openly about their pet grief, to give people a space to cry and to feel their emotions about the trauma and grief would be something so special. And my God, has it been special. It has been incredible. It was something that I searched for when my dogs died. That was exactly what I wanted. That is exactly what I didn't know I wanted that, but that was what I was hoping for. To be in a space where I did not feel judged and did not feel scared to talk about all of my emotions, my PTSD, my panic attacks, ways that I was suppressing my excessive exercise, my vestibular migraines, my vertigo, all of these physical symptoms that were happening. Grief affected me tremendously, physically and mentally. That was what I was looking for. And the fact that I can create a space now for people where I can guide them through the grief recovery method, the same exact method that I did, the program that I did to help me, is something that I can't even believe that I'm saying to you right now. It makes me feel emotional that from the death of Ozzy and Moose, this business, Light After Loss, was born. And my God, was there so much light after my loss. So much light that I shone on this topic. I've went on numerous radio stations. I've went on national television. I have put myself in fear, in petrifying situations, because I was so adamant and determined to speak about this. And the majority of people were so supportive. Do not get me wrong, but there were some people that in the background were like, this is so silly. It is so silly. What is she doing, wasting her time doing this? And those people knocked me down for a couple of months while I was trying to grow my little business. But my God, did I beat it. And I just said to myself, no, this is about the bigger picture, Louise. This is about the bigger picture. I was in a space where I could offer clients the support and guidance that they needed during their pet loss, or when they were anticipating the death of their pet. I had done all of this deep work that I was able to emotionally show up for these people and create that space online that they really needed. Because what's important about it being online is the fact that you've heard me speak before about the really serious, reduced sense of concentration that one has when they are grieving, sleep disturbance, poor appetite or really increased appetite, and there's panic attacks, there's PTSD, there's all of the other, there's a long list of responses that we can experience when we go through grief. But like, offering this in an online space where people are comfortable, they don't have to worry about getting in their car to a location they've never been, traffic, stress, anxiety, finding clothes to put on, like all of that stuff is just eliminated. It's gone. You can sit there with your laptop and speak to me. You can have your pajamas on. It does not matter. Comfort is queen. And just having a laptop and having Wi-Fi, or a tablet and having Wi-Fi, that's all that you need to start to begin to work on these painful feelings that you're going through. That is what is so special about it. The groups that I've held have been incredible. They have allowed people to speak about their pet loss grief and tell people things that they have not told the people in their inner circles in their life, because they feel that fear. But by creating that non-judgmental space, it allows people to cry on camera, which I encourage all of the time. And I don't know about different countries, but I know in Ireland, when people cry or they start to cry, they start to apologise for crying. And I'm like, no apologies, no I'm sorries for crying. Crying is a good thing. Crying is grieving. Crying is releasing. Crying is amazing. Crying is giving yourself a gift to process a really painful emotion. Holding in tears, which, look, I understand may have to be done in the workplace or in certain situations, it can be really painful, like emotionally. If you were to think of, you really need to wee and you hold that wee in, that becomes painful in your lower belly, in your lower tummy, and the relief that you feel when you finally get to wee is amazing. This is the exact same concept. Holding in those tears over a long period of time can become painful, but then the relief and the release that we feel when we cry is spectacular. We feel sad, but then we feel that relief, we feel that release of emotion. That's what grief is crying. And for some people, grieving isn't crying, and that's okay as well. That is perfectly okay too. But I will stop my rant about how I like crying so much. I mean, I probably cry once per week, and that's good. I mean, I would worry about myself if I wasn't crying once per week, because, like I mentioned last week, I'm a sensitive and emotional person, and I like that I am. I like that person that I am. I celebrate that, and crying helps me to regulate my nervous system, helps me to grieve, helps me to release difficult emotions. So yes, that is something that is special to me. But back to the journal entry, which I always seem to get sidetracked, but for those of you who probably are new to this podcast, then you have a little bit of background as to my story. This podcast is, yes, it is about speaking about my journal entries, about my pet loss experience, but also the fact that some of you may not know that I have a business, Light After Loss, and I help people online all around the world that are experiencing pet loss, and walk them through the grief recovery method, which is that step-by-step evidence-based grief recovery program, the only one in the world that really helped me to get to a place of acceptance and healing surrounding the death of both of my dogs. I am so proud that I can offer this to people, to clients that need the support, really. But yes, that is a little bit about that journal entry. It was amazing to read it back. I had a sob when I was prepping for this episode because I had no idea that I had even written that journal entry, but it makes it so special. I would love to mention a small bit about the Patreon, and over there is where you can support this podcast to keep this podcast going, but also in doing that you receive bonus episodes and lots of extra content and direct way to connect with me, to contact me. Your support is always appreciated. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this week's episode. Remember, your pet loss grief is real, and it is so valid. Please be gentle on yourself. Until next time, take care.